This program is called Test Score Average 1. It's located on the student data disk, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about creating a simple if statement and also a try-catch statement. So you can see there's 3 text boxes to get 3 test scores from the user, and it calculates the average. So if I run this program, you can see here, if I enter 3 test scores, it'll calculate and display the average in this label here. In addition, there's a label on this form called LBL message, and what we're going to do is create an if statement that'll display if your average is greater than 95, then right in this label here we'll put congratulations, great job. So let's take a look at the code. Here you can see this is the code to get the information from the 3 text boxes and store it in 3 tuple variables. Here's the calculation to calculate the average, and this is a line of code that puts that information back into the average label. So now we're going to take a look at adding an if statement. So if this average, in this case is called DBL average, is greater than 95, and I could put 95 here, but they actually have declared a constant double high score, which is 95, so I'm going to use that. And so that's what this looks like. And then I'm going to put information in the LBL message that you just saw on the form. So here you can see a simple if statement. So I'm going to run this again. Okay, and I'm going to put in some test scores that should be an average greater than 95. And you'll see our message appear here. And I'll run it again with some test data that will be lower than 95. And again, no message. So there's a simple if statement. The other thing that's demonstrated in tutorial 4-1 is a try-catch statement. And so I wanted to actually show you this myself. And what happens is if the user doesn't put in something that actually can be converted to a number, like let's say they leave one of these blank or they put a letter, we can use a try-catch statement for that just to get an error message. So I'm going to start right before all of my input from the user. I'm just going to have try and go all the way to the end of this code, and then I'm going to put my catch. And I'm going to use a simple message box to display a message if there's a problem. And when you have a try-catch, you need an end try to go with that. Okay, so all this try-catch, all my code's in here. If there's a problem with any of these 3 conversions, we'll get an error message. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to leave them all blank and click Calculate Average. See what happens? This comes out right here from my message box. I'm going to put in 8989 and the letter S. Again, I get my message box. Scores must be numeric. Clear. This time I'll put in valid data. And everything works fine. So using a try-catch to check your input data is really relatively simple, and it's a good idea to incorporate that into your programs.